My sister grabbed the wedding microphone to mock my thin envelope in front of her rich in-laws, joking that I probably couldn't afford a real gift. She stopped laughing the second she pulled out the document inside. The feedback from the speakers whined, a high-pitched squeal that cut through the crisp autumn air of the vineyard. Just a second of noise. But it was enough to silence the crowd of 200 guests. They were all looking at me. I stood at the foot of the head table. I was wearing the pale beige dress Bella had approved for me. Not a bridesmaid's dress. Just a guest dress. I held the envelope out with both hands. My face was blank. I had practiced this expression in the mirror for 3 weeks. It was the face of a woman who had absolutely nothing left to lose. "Come on, Morgan." Bella laughed into the mic, her voice bubbling with champagne and malice. She adjusted her veil, the imported lace catching the sunset. "Don't be shy. We know things are tight for you. Nobody expects a toaster oven." A ripple of polite, uncomfortable laughter moved through the crowd. Her new husband, Julian, looked down at his plate, embarrassed. But he didn't stop her. Nobody ever stopped Bella. That was the problem. For 30 years, nobody had ever told my sister no. I didn't say a word. I just took one step forward and placed the manila envelope on the white tablecloth, right next to her half-eaten slice of wedding cake. It wasn't thin. It was thick enough to have weight. "Oh." Bella raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Is it a card? Did you write me a poem about how much you're going to miss living vicariously through me?" She tore the seal. I watched her eyes. I needed to see the moment the light went out. I had paid $54,000 for this moment. I had driven a car with a leaking radiator for this moment. I had let her insult me, degrade me, and steal from me, just so I could stand here and watch her read the first line of bold black text. Notice to quit. Termination of tenancy due to sale and demolition. To understand why I ruined my sister's wedding, you have to understand the cottage. And you have to understand the math. I am an accountant. I understand the world through ledgers, debits and credits, assets and liabilities. For 3 years, my sister Bella has been my biggest liability. 3 years ago, our parents died in a car accident. It was sudden, brutal. It left us with a small inheritance and a massive hole in the world. I took my share and did the sensible thing. I bought a small 2-bedroom cottage on the edge of town. It was an investment property. It needed work, but the location was up and coming. The market rent was estimated at $1,500 a month. That was the plan. Rent it out. Build equity. Secure my future. Then Bella called. She was sobbing. She couldn't breathe. She told me she had been fired from her marketing job. She told me her roommate was kicking her out. She told me she had nowhere to go. "Just for a few months, Morgan," she had pleaded. "Just until I get back on my feet. Please. You're the only family I have left." I loved her. She was my little sister. She was the vibrant one, the pretty one, the one who lit up a room while I stood in the corner holding the coats. I couldn't let her live in her car. So I gave her the keys to the cottage. "No rent," I told her. "Just pay the utilities. Get yourself together. Take 3 months. 3 months turned into 6. 6 months turned into a year. Every time I brought it up, there was a crisis. A medical scare that turned out to be nothing. A job interview that fell through because the boss was threatened by her energy. A car repair that cost $2,000. I paid the mortgage. I paid the property taxes. I paid for the new water heater when the old one burst. I drove a 2013 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it. The AC didn't work in the summer. The heater smelled like burning plastic in the winter. I worked double shifts during tax season, staring at spreadsheets until my eyes burned, just to keep my head above water. Meanwhile, Bella was finding herself. She told me she was broke. She told me she was eating ramen noodles. She told me she applied for 50 jobs a week. I believed her. Because I am logical. I assumed that if someone says they are drowning, they are actually in the water. I didn't realize Bella was standing on the shore, describing the water to me while drinking a margarita. The cracks started to show 6 months ago. I went over to the cottage to fix a leaky faucet. Bella wasn't home. She said she was at the library, using the free Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. I let myself in. The place smelled expensive. Not like stale air and cheap cleaning products, It smelled like sandalwood and high-end perfume. I walked into the bathroom to check the sink, and I saw it. The counter was covered in products. Not drugstore brands. We are talking La Mer Drunk Elephant. Bottles of serum that I knew, because I have clients who are wealthy, cost $80 an ounce. I froze. I stood there holding a pipe wrench, staring at a jar of moisturizer that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Maybe it was a gift, I whispered to myself. I was still making excuses for her. That's what victims do. We rationalize the abuse because the truth is too painful to look at directly. I fixed the sink. Then I went into the spare bedroom, the one she was supposed to be using as a storage space for her meager belongings. It wasn't storage. It was a studio. There was a professional massage table in the center of the room, a ring light, a sterile trolley cart loaded with lash trays, adhesives, and tweezers. On the wall, a framed certificate, Certified Master Lash Technician, and on the desk, a ledger, a spiral-bound notebook. I opened it. My heart stopped. It literally skipped a beat, a physical thud in my chest. Bella wasn't unemployed. Bella was running a cash-only business out of my house. I started turning the pages. The dates went back 2 years. June 12th, $450. June 13th, $600. June 14th, $300. She was clearing $4,000 a month. Cash. Untaxed. Pure profit. And she was paying me zero. I felt sick. I sat down on the expensive velvet stool she had bought for her clients. I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator app. 36 months. At $1,500 market rent. $54,000. That was the number. That was the amount of money she had stolen from me. Not by robbing a bank, but by looking me in the eye, crying about how hard her life was, and letting me subsidize her existence. I remembered the time she asked me for money to buy groceries because she was faint from hunger. I had transferred her $200. She had probably used it to buy that La Mer cream. I remembered the time I couldn't go to the dentist for a root canal because I had to pay the property tax on the cottage. I lived on ibuprofen for 3 weeks. Bella knew that. She watched me holding my jaw in pain. And she said nothing. I heard the front door open. Morgan. Her voice was cheerful. Too cheerful. What are you doing here? I thought you were working late. I stood up. I closed the ledger. I had a choice in that moment. I could scream. I could throw the book at her. I could drag her by her hair and throw her out on the street. But if I did that, she would win. She would spin it. She would cry to our extended family. She would tell everyone I was crazy, jealous, unstable. She would say she was just practicing to start a business. She would play the victim, and because I am the strong stoic sister, everyone would believe her. I needed more than anger. I needed leverage. I put the ledger down exactly where I found it. I walked out of the room. Just fixing the sink, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Hello. It's done now. Bella walked into the hallway. She was wearing a new dress. I recognized the designer. Reformation. $300. She held a shopping bag from Sephora. Oh, thanks, sis, she chirped. She didn't even look at me. She breezed past me into the kitchen. God, it's so stressful lately. The job market is just... It's a nightmare. I might need to borrow $50 for gas this week. Is that okay? I looked at her. I looked at the sister I had protected my whole life. And I felt something inside me snap. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet sound of a bridge collapsing into the sea. I'll see what I can do, I said. That was the beginning of the false compliance. I went home to my apartment. It was a 1-bedroom walk-up. The carpet was fraying. The refrigerator hummed so loud I had to wear earplugs to sleep. This was where I lived, while Bella lived in my beautiful cottage with the garden and the bay windows. I sat at my kitchen table and I opened a new spreadsheet on my laptop. I named the file Project Eviction. Step 1 was information gathering. I became a spy in my own life. So, she started picking at her kale. We've been talking about the bridal party. Okay, I said. I assumed I was maid of honor. I was her only sister. I love you, Morgan. You know that. The classic preamble to a betrayal. But, honestly, you look tired. She reached across the table and touched my cheek. Her hand was soft. Mine was rough from dry skin and stress. You look so worn out. Stressed. Your energy is just very heavy right now. I work 60 hours a week, Bella, I said, to pay for the house you live in. See, she exclaimed. That bitterness. It's just not the vibe I want for the wedding. Julian's family is elegant. They're high society. The photos need to be cohesive. And honestly, you don't fit the aesthetic I'm going for. I want a very specific look for the maid of honor. Very fresh. Very youthful. I stared at her. You're cutting me from the bridal party because I look tired? I'm replacing you, she corrected. With Kinsley. From my sorority. She's an influencer. She knows how to pose. It's just better for the brand. The brand, I repeated. It's a wedding, Bella. Not a product launch. It's the same thing, she said, rolling her eyes. Anyway, you're still invited. Obviously. But just as a guest. And maybe wear something beige? Something that blends in. I don't want you looking washed out in the pictures. I looked down at my $25 salad. I thought about the $54,000. I thought about the house-sitter comment. I took a deep breath. This was the turning point. This was the moment I decided that eviction wasn't enough. I needed to salt the earth. You're right, I said softly. Bella blinked. She was expecting a fight. She wanted a fight. A fight would make her the victim. I am, she asked. Yes, I said. I looked her in the eye and I lied with the skill of a sociopath. I am tired. I'm exhausted. Being maid of honor is a lot of work. I don't think I could handle the planning. Kinsley is a great choice. She's so photogenic. Bella beamed. The tension evaporated. She got what she wanted. Oh my God. Thank you for being so understanding. She squeezed my hand. This is such a relief. I was so worried you'd be dramatic about it. No drama, I promised. Just peace. I went back to my office. I closed the door. I called a number I had been saving for weeks. Mr. Henderson? I said when the gruff voice answered. This is Morgan. Regarding the lot on Elm Street. Mr. Henderson was a commercial developer. He was known in our town as the bulldozer. He bought old properties, leveled them, and put up strip malls and parking lots. He was ruthless. He was hated. He was perfect. He had been trying to buy my cottage for 2 years. The lot was adjacent to a planned shopping center. He wanted to pave it. I'm listening, he said. I'm ready to sell, I said. Cash. Cash, I said. But there are conditions. Name them. Condition 1, I said. The closing date needs to be exactly 3 days before October 22nd. That's the wedding date, he noted. He knew everything happening in town. Yes. Condition 2. I want a cash for keys clause but reversed. I handle the vacancy. I handle the tenant. You do not approach the property until the day after the sale closes. And the tenant, he asked. It's your sister, right? The tenant, I said, my voice flat, will be vacating. The property is to be delivered empty of personal belongings, or they become property of the developer. But I need a document from you. A specific document. What document? A demolition notice, I said. Scheduled for 30 days post-closing. Official letterhead. Red stamp. The works. I could hear the smile in his voice. It was a shark's smile. I can do that, he said. 400,000. As is. It was 50,000 below market value if I sold it as a home. But as a tear down, it was fair. And honestly, I didn't care about the 50,000. I cared about the ending. Deal, I said. For the next 2 months I lived a double life. To Bella I was the submissive beige ghost. I helped her address envelopes, even though I wasn't in the wedding party. I listened to her complain about how the orchids were the wrong shade of white. I nodded when she told me my hair looked stringy. You should really get a trim before the wedding, she said. Don't embarrass me. I will, I said. I'm saving up. Behind the scenes I was finalizing the paperwork. I met with a lawyer to ensure the eviction was ironclad. Because Bella had never paid rent, she wasn't technically a tenant in the traditional sense, but in our state she had squatter's rights. However, The sale of a property for demolition offered a loophole. A notice to quit based on the destruction of the premises. It was immediate. It was brutal. And because she had no lease, no receipts, and no proof of payment, she had no legal leg to stand on. I packed my own apartment. I found a new place, a beautiful condo on the other side of the city. I signed the lease. I bought new furniture. I didn't tell a soul. 1 week before the wedding, Bella called me. She was frantic. "Morgan, I need a favor." "What is it?" "The honeymoon. We went a little over budget on the flowers. Like 10,000 over. Julian is stressing. I need you to loan us $5,000 for the flights to the Maldives." "Loan." She used the word loan like she knew what it meant. "Bella, I don't have $5,000, I said. "I'm broke. Remember? I'm house poor." "Oh my God, stop playing the victim," she screamed into the phone. "You have a job. You have credit cards. Just figure it out. It's my wedding. You're going to ruin my honeymoon because you're too cheap to help your family." "I can't do it, Bella. You are useless," she hissed. "You know that? You are actually useless. Mom and Dad would be so ashamed of you." She hung up. I stared at the phone. Mom and Dad would be ashamed of me. That was the kill shot. That was the sentence that erased any lingering guilt I had. Picked up my pen. I opened the manila envelope. I had the notice to quit. I had the demolition notice. I took out my checkbook. I wrote a check to Bella for the exact amount of her security deposit. $0. But then I thought about it. A check for $0 is impossible. And I wanted this to be transactional. I wanted to close the ledger. I wrote the check for $1. Memo line. Security deposit refund. I slid the 3 documents into the envelope. I sealed it. I placed it on my dresser next to my car keys. The trap was set. The wedding day was perfect. Of course it was. The sky was a piercing blue. The vineyard was lush. The air smelled of expensive wine and money. I drove my beat-up Honda to the venue. I parked it next to a row of Porsches and Maseratis. The valet looked at my car like it was a contagious disease. "I'll self-park," I told him. I walked to the ceremony site. I took my seat in the 3rd row. Not the front row. The front row was for the bridal party and close family. Bella had put me in the 3rd row behind Julian's college roommates. I watched her walk down the aisle. She looked beautiful. I won't deny that. She was radiant. She was crying tears of joy. She looked like an angel. But I knew what was underneath the lace. I knew the rot that was in the foundation. I sat through the vows. I heard them promise to love and cherish. I heard Bella promise to be honest and true. I almost laughed, but I held it in. Then came the reception. It was in a massive white tent. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The centerpieces were towering arrangements of white orchids and hydrangeas. The champagne flowed like water. I found my table. Table 14. Near the kitchen doors. I sat there sipping water. I didn't drink. I needed a clear head. I watched Bella work the room. She was the queen. She was floating from table to table, accepting compliments, showing off her ring. Finally, the speeches began. The best man gave a drunken, slightly inappropriate toast. The maid of honor, Kinsley, gave a speech that was mostly about herself and how many followers she had. Then Bella took the microphone. She loved the spotlight. She bathed in it. "Thank you all for coming," she beamed. "It means the world to us. We are so blessed. Julian, I love you." Applause. "And I want to thank my family," she continued. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on me. A predatory grin spread across her face. She was still angry about the $5,000. She wanted to punish me. She wanted to make me small. "My sister Morgan is here. Wave, Morgan." I didn't wave. I just stared. "Morgan is..." "Well, she's special," Bella laughed. "She's always been the serious one. The frugal one. She drove here in a car that's older than some of the guests." Laughter. "She's sitting back there at table 14. I see you holding that envelope, Morgan. Is that my gift?" She was going off script. She was drunk on power. "I hope it's not a check," she teased. "Because I know how tight things are for you. Maybe it's a coupon book? Or a drawing." She turned to her in-laws. "My sister is very thrifty. She's practically lived like a monk so I could pursue my dreams. But honestly, I think she just lacks imagination. The crowd was laughing, but it was nervous laughter. It was cruel. Come on up, Morgan, she beckoned. Bring me my gift. Let's see if it's as thin as your wallet. This was it. I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. I walked toward the head table. My heels clicked on the dance floor. Click, click, click. The room went quiet. There was something in my walk. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't hunching over in shame. I was marching. I reached the table. Bella was smirking. She held the microphone loosely in her hand. I placed the envelope on the table. Open it, I said. I didn't have a microphone, but in the silence of the room my voice carried. Bella rolled her eyes. So dramatic. She tore it open. She pulled out the first paper. The check. $1, she read aloud. She laughed, a harsh barking sound. You gave me a check for $1? God, Morgan, that's pathetic even for you. Read the rest, I said. She pulled out the second paper. The notice to quit. I saw her eyes scan the header. Notice to quit. Her smile faltered. What is this? Read it, I said. Out loud. I'm not reading this, she whispered. She looked confused. Morgan, what is this? It's your eviction, I said. Loudly. A gasp went through the room. Julian stood up. Morgan, what the hell are you doing? And the next one, I said, pointing to the third document. The one with the red stamp. Bella pulled it out. Demolition order. Demolition. Her voice trembled. What do you mean, demolition? I sold the cottage, Bella, I said. My voice was cool, smooth like ice water. I sold it 3 days ago. To a developer. He's turning it into a parking lot. You sold my house? She shrieked. The microphone amplified the screech. It was deafening. My house, I corrected. It was never your house. You were a guest. A guest who didn't pay. A guest who lied. A guest who stole $54,000 in rent from her own sister, while buying La Mer cream and hiding a lash business. The room was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. I know about the ledger, Bella, I said. I know about the $4,000 a month you were making. I know you weren't broke. I know you were using me. Bella's face went pale. She looked at Julian. Julian looked at her, then at me. Is that true? Julian asked. You told me you were destitute. You told me you were paying her rent. Bella stammered. She's lying. She's jealous. The utilities are being cut off tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I said. The bulldozers arrive in 30 days. Anything you leave in that house becomes landfill. I pointed to the $1 check. And that, I said, is your security deposit. I deducted the emotional damages. You actually owe me $53,999. But I'm willing to call it even. Consider it a wedding gift. I turned around. Morgan, you can't do this. Bella screamed. She dropped the microphone. It hit the table with a thud. Where am I supposed to live? We haven't closed on Julian's condo yet. I didn't turn back. I walked away. I walked past the stunned in-laws. I walked past the gaping guests. I walked past the bridesmaids who looked like statues. I walked out of the tent. I walked into the cool night air. I got into my 2013 Honda Civic. Started on the first try. My phone started ringing before I even left the parking lot. Bella. Julian. Our aunt. Our cousins. I turned the phone off. I drove to my new condo. It was quiet. It smelled like fresh paint and freedom. I sat on my new couch, opened a bottle of wine. A cheap one because old habits die hard, and I stared at the wall. I didn't feel guilty. That was the surprise. I waited for the guilt to come, but it never did. I just felt light. Weightless. The next morning I turned my phone back on. 37 missed calls. 50 texts. One from Julian. We need to talk. I saw the ledger. One from Bella. I hate you. You ruined my life. The power is out. My lash glue is going to spoil without AC. How could you? I didn't reply. I went to work. I did my job. I came home. 2 days later I drove by the cottage. Just to see. There was a moving truck in the driveway. Not a professional one. A U-Haul. Julian was carrying boxes. He looked angry. He wasn't wearing his wedding ring. Bella was standing on the lawn screaming into her phone. She was wearing sweatpants. She looked tired. She looked ragged. I didn't stop. I kept driving. The demolition happened 3 weeks later. Mr. Henderson sent me a video. I watched the excavator claw through the roof. I watched the walls crumble. I watched the bedroom where she had built her little empire of lies turn into splintered wood and dust. It was beautiful. It's been 6 months now. I heard through the grapevine that Julian filed for an annulment. He didn't like being lied to. He didn't like finding out his new wife was a parasite who had exploited her own sister for years. Apparently, the aesthetic of fraud wasn't what he was looking for. Bella is living with our aunt in Arizona. She's working at a mall kiosk. She sends me emails sometimes, asking for money, asking why I'm so cruel. I have a filter set up. They go straight to trash. I sold the Honda. I bought a new car. A sensible SUV. It has heated seats. Sometimes when I'm driving I turn on the heated seats, even if it's not that cold. I just like the warmth. I like knowing that I paid for it. I like knowing that nobody is taking it from me. People ask me if I regret it. They ask if it was worth blowing up my family over money. They don't understand. It wasn't about the money. It was about the microphone. It was about the moment she decided to laugh at me for keeping her alive. I didn't laugh back. I just handed her the bill. And I would do it again in a heartbeat.